Ja.
Jmenuji se Jiří Vítek, jsem vodohospodář. Můj dotaz se bude týkat toho, jakým způsobem se zabýváte adaptací Kodaně na změnu klimatu. A protože jsem vodohospodář, tak mě zajímá, jestli ve městě máte regulativy pro odvodňování města a jak se vám daří prosazovat to zadržování srážkové vody ve stávající zástavbě. A naposled, jestli je u vás spoplatněné bez výjimek odvádění srážkové vody. Děkuji.
That was a lot of questions. I have another lecture about how we take care of the rainwater, and it takes 1.5 hours to tell you. So the short story is that by making the analyzing of the whole city, we have a lot of data that knows all about how the topography is, where the rain will come from and where does it go to. By this knowledge, we have been making a plan saying that we have some roads where we have to get the water fast. We have some roads where we have to get it slowly to keep the water. And we have to have some big areas where the water can be kept for a longer period. The vision and the strategy is that our politicians has told us that we want to have the water to give something back to the city. So all the engineers want to put all the water into big pipes and make infrastructure as we did in last century. And we have to argue quite a lot and say you have to keep the water on ground as far as we can. Of course there is sometimes we have to get it into the harbor by big ships. But the vision is that it has to give something back to the city. And by having this overall view, we now start by taking the most important projects from the beginning, then we just build on for the next 10 to 15 years. But it is the specific technical data. I know that there is a lot of people that knows a lot more about the water issue in general. If you take care of the rainwater yourself, you are not paying fees for the central system. So there is an economical, interesting incentive in taking care of the rainwater on your own because you can spare money. Was that a little bit answer?
Dál, někdo další?
Martin Města, dobrý den. Moje otázka by se týkala, jestli Kodaň nějakým způsobem pracuje aktivně s tím, čemu se v Německu říká Baugruppe, tedy pokud si skupina domácností rozhodne sama nechat postavit dům, jestli město počítá s tím, že takovým skupinám asi nepředstavuje přímo cenu pozemků, třeba nabízí pozemky s nějakým jako kritériem kvality využití. Děkuji.
No. And I think, in a way, that we are not good at that. I think our mayor right now is asking for how can we create smaller corporations. So he's been asking, what can we do to change that? I think one of the biggest problem is that the city itself, we do not own any land. It's a very, very small amount of land that we own ourselves. So the value of the land is totally on the private market. And we cannot buy it cheaper than what the market price is. So therefore we have to get private investors to try to work with that. But I just got almost an agreement with one of the private investors that he wants to help us to try to see if we can be better off developing that together. So I hope that if you ask that question, within 2 years we can say to you that we have been developing a new way of making smaller communities. Because it is a very, very good idea, and it is also a way of taking care of the diversity of people, that we can actually have a smaller community. I would like to live in one myself. I know a lot of people that wants that.
Další.
I would have a question or comment, because usually here in Brno, from politicians, we can see an argument that Brno is not a Copenhagen. Simple argument. So I would like to ask you, I'm wondering, what would be your answer for such a comment?
It is true. In a way, I think sometimes that could be a political excuse for discussing something. But I think what is important is, of course, you can learn something from seeing other cities. And you can say that there is something here that is general, and we can go back with that. Talk about the human beings, that is general. So we can talk a lot about how can we create cities for human beings, and we can share knowledge about that. So the Czech people is also having an island of 160 and 120. So therefore we can use that as something that we can talk about in general. But I also think that it is important that each city has its own story. And there is a history of Brno that is totally different from the history of Copenhagen. And I think that we have to go deeper into our history also to get unique cities, so that we don't get cities that look alike. So maybe it should be, for Brno it should be more a pedestrian city than a bicycle city, or maybe you should make another flow, maybe you should make some other areas totally car-free, and then a lot of cars in the other places, compared to what the history of the people is and what the cultural history is. So I think right now there is a tendency that all cities want to look alike, and that all cities is having the same shops, all cities is having the same star architects, all cities is discussing the same issues, and often the answers is getting more and more alike. And I don't think that's a good direction to go in.
Okay, but let me ask about cycling, which of course Copenhagen is very famous by, and you said that's one of your topics, to be the best bicycle city. It's quite windy in there. It's quite cold also in there, and it rains a lot. How come it's so popular?
I don't know. I think some of it is really that it is a political ambition and has been it for a long time. So there is totally ongoing building a more bike lanes. So just on quite narrow streets, we just go and see if we can make 30 centimeters broader bike lanes so that two bicycles can pass each other. And of course that is an economical investment that you're going to put in. So I think that is one of the reasons. And then I think that the strategic approach, that we not only discuss it as projects, but we have a strategy of what is important. And the strategy of focusing on shortcuts as one main issue is based on the knowledge of the people. So it's based on a lot of interviewing, discussing with people about why do you take a bicycle. And I think in the beginning, when we started to have the discussion about bikes, we thought that people would take the bike because they want to be eco-friendly. And there is probably a lot of people also here in Brno. The bicycle people is probably a special kind of people that is a little more healthy than the rest of us, and they are a little more sporty than the rest of us, and they are a little more sustainable than the rest of us. And I think that we have to understand how we can get the normal people to bicycle more. And by understanding that, we have to put money into making analysis, collecting data in new ways. So therefore, it has also to be a political ambition just to start to ask and talk to the people about how can we get them to buy more, and not only by putting money into building it. So it should be based on the knowledge of human beings. I think we've been quite good at that. We have a Danish architect called Jan, and he's been collecting data from, he was a young architect, so he's been making data about everything, about the flow and where people walk and everything, and that data has been very important for the administration to talk with the politicians about what do we know and not what do you think we know, but this is actually facts.
Další otázky. Ještě jsem viděl jedno tam vzadu, chvíli ještě. Ano.
I would like to ask how your office works. If you also design, or you only judge other people's design, and basically, if you like in public space, if you also are designing or only advising other designers.
Me as a person?
As a city.
As a city.
If you have like architects who are designing public spaces in the city.
Yeah, of course.
Many?
Of course. Who else should design it? It has to be designed, hasn't it? Was that good? Is there something I do not know about Bruno? Or?
I was like if city-paid architects, like not private sector architects, also design part of the city, or if you only outsource it like outside.
The city. Going 20 years back, I don't know if I answered the question now, but I'll tell you a story anyway. Going 20 years back, the city administration and also the city architect designed a lot of urban spaces and a lot of buildings in the city. So, or maybe, 20 years ago, we did a lot of the designing ourselves. Today, we do not do any designing ourselves. So I'm not drawing any longer, and my colleagues do not draw anything. So we use architects for every design we are going to have. When we do streets and pedestrian areas, we use the Copenhagen standard design, and therefore some of the projects is just something that we can do together with an entrepreneur. But mostly all spaces and all projects is designed with a cooperation with an engineer and an architect.
Hello, my name is Josef Patočka, and I would like to ask a question concerning how conflicts are handled in public planning and strategy in Copenhagen, and I'm asking specifically because I have taken a great interest in a conflict which is, I would say, raging in Brno for many years now. And it's a controversy over the preferable position of the train station, in which there will be already a second referendum this autumn over whether it should move a kilometer to the south from the center or stay in its current, or be modernized in its current position. And it seems to me from your presentation that there is maybe no need for such things in Copenhagen, because the administration, the political leadership of the city is very responsive to the citizens, and it takes a great interest in their needs and their opinions. So I would like to ask about if there are any experience from Copenhagen with like large-scale conflicts in planning, referendums, or participatory methods in planning.
Yeah.
That's
a lot of experience and a lot of conflicts. I think I can have 3 reflections on that. The first one is a historical one. I think that Copenhagen has a history going back to Christiania and a lot of other projects. Do everybody know Christiania? No. Christiania is an area on listed land in Copenhagen that is a free zone, a free neighborhood, where a group of people just was taking in the land and they started to make their own city or their own neighborhood. A long story about that, but I won't tell that. But that is, in a way, I think that history is the knowledge for everybody that it can actually make a change that you do participate. And we have other stories where you can see that participation and engagement has been changing the political decisions. But that is one reflection, a historical one. The other one is that I think that we need to understand that by co-creating the city and by understanding the diversity of people, there will be a lot of conflicts. And if there is no conflict, again, it will be a boring neighborhood and a boring city. So in a way, I don't think that we have to embrace the conflicts in another way that we've been doing before, and understand that is the human resources of the city, that we have a lot of conflicts. My own experience is that, and that was the third one, that I think that if we go back, it was often a conflict between the city administration and the politicians and the citizens. I don't think that's the way the conflict is today. And my own observation is that if I do design the processes in the right way, the citizens find out that the biggest conflict is among you. It is not the city and the politicians that is stupid, but you are diverse and you have conflicts, and you have to take care of those conflicts a lot more yourself and understand them, because I don't know the history about the train station, but I could guess that there is a lot of different citizens that has different opinions about what should be done, and that it is not so much a conflict about the politicians and the citizens. I don't know that story. I might be wrong in that, but I can just see that when we have different workshops and discussions among stakeholders, I can often see that when I put them in the room together and I go out, they start to find out that I'm not the enemy, but the enemy is in the group themselves. And often when they understand the need of the other citizen, then they start to be more pragmatic about the solution. And often I can see that they actually find the solution themselves, which then starts to be a very robust, then it starts to be a very resilient decision that we can take, because the group of people is actually agreeing on what they want in an open neighborhood. And we just had a discussion about a new neighborhood when we were making a local plan, and it was a sports area. And the local politicians and the neighborhood has been angry about that area for 10 years. And the politicians has been putting in money for a new design and a new design and a new architectural competition, and nobody could ever agree on anything. Then we had a workshop where one of my colleagues had designed a totally stupid process where the different stakeholders was going to design how to make active urban spaces. And he forgot, he was a young guy, he forgot that they had been discussing that for 10 years. They didn't want to discuss how you could design active space. They wanted to discuss why there wasn't any skating hall, why the politicians didn't put any money in, why we did so many plans and nothing was going to happen. And then I said, it's because you can't agree. And then they started to, instead of making the workshop that we have designed, they started to discuss where to place that skating hall. And it was the actually first time that they were having that discussion together, them. Because before that, the city has been discussing with that group, and then we went to a meeting with that group, and we went to a meeting with that group, and we were having meetings with a lot of different groups, but we were never putting the groups together. And they then started to have the discussion. And when they started to ask each other questions, then they decided and they changed where the skating hall should be. So what we have tried in 10 years, they just decided in 3 hours by talking together.
I would like to ask you about cooperation, because I see it as the biggest strategy for cities, like cooperation, especially with private investors and the city. And I would like to ask you what you think how to start this process, because we have no experience, no history and experience in Czech Republic with this kind of cooperation, and I think it's very difficult to bring this on the table that people will trust, but also that it will be transparent cooperation, let's say, which is, I think, important. So what do you think should be the starting point, like how to start cooperation, and also how that people will trust, and also what's the instruments maybe for private investors that they would trust the city, that they will have some benefits, and on the other hand, the city will have also a control about certain spaces. I know it's very difficult and you spoke already about it, but I just wanted to have a comment on that.
I think the first thing is that you have to accept that they have to earn money. And I think that is the first conflict, that in a way we don't like them to earn money on something. They are the bad guys. So I think that we have to acknowledge and welcome and understand that the reason that they are in the world is to earn money on the profits. And by understanding that and starting to understand the language that they are talking, then we can start to have a totally different discussion. And I don't think that there is any investors that is bad people. They are fathers and sons, and they are just like us. So in a way, they also want to make good cities. But we have to be better talking to them about what kind of value does it make when we make good cities. And one of the research things we did was that we did a research together with some other cities about the value of their estate. So we could tell them by data and factor that if they had green area close to the building, then the value of the estate would raise. Okay, then I wanted to put some green stuff here, they say. And then we start the discussion in another way. We could also see that the value of the estate was higher if the ground floor has public activities and small shops. Then they ask us the question, how can we get small shops into this building? Then we can say, you can do that by lower the rent in the ground floors for a period so that the creative people has money for a time. So in a way, I think that by accepting that we are all a part of the co-creation process and understand each other in a different kind of language, we has come one step ahead. Then of course the investors is still a little bit the bad guys. But I think it helps quite a lot that you accept it. I think what I can see also is that for the investors in Copenhagen, it's been very, very important that we could do our processes faster than we've been doing before. And for the city administration, we are just saying 2 months. What does that mean? We have to get our politicians, and we have to discuss it. We have to go to the parking people, and that takes time. And all the private investors were saying, yeah, but that costs us money. Yeah, but that's your investment. But in a way, just by asking them questions about how much money does it cost you, we're trying to understand that it is quite a lot of money it costs them if we are getting too slow in the administration. So by pushing their deadline 3 months, that means that they can't get a big loan in the bank, or they will lose a lot of money in one way or the other. Then of course they don't want to make quality. So by understanding their premises of the design process and try to use that as something where we can say we can do it faster, but then we need to have more quality into the design concept, or we need to have more quality in the urban space around it. Then they think it's interesting to start to talk about. And we can make a local plan in Copenhagen now in 1 year. That's quite fast, isn't it?
Okay, well, let me ask about one point in the presentation. There was this moment when you mentioned there should be more nature in the city.
Yeah.
And basically people want more nature in the city. And in recent years in Czech Republic, there is a higher awareness about urban sprawl. That cities are growing in size, not in terms of amount of people, but it's taking more and more land. And let's say as a reaction from architects is coming the news speaking about densifying. And quite a lot of people understand densifying as a danger to the nature. They don't understand, okay, by densifying they mean they're gonna build buildings in the middle of our parks and the whole green stuff's gonna disappear. So they see, let's say, the contrary between what architects are saying and this demand of more nature in the city. Do you see it as a conflict, or can you speak about it a bit?
I think it is a conflict if you don't have regulation on it. But the way that we regulate it in Denmark in general is by our national law, saying that if you build housing, you have to have 40% of green or urban area. If it is offices, it is 10%, and if it is cultural or kindergarten, it is 100%. And in that way, you always get urban space around the building. Which also means that we don't talk that much high-rise in Copenhagen, because if you build a tall building, then you just need more area around it. And you know that more area around a tall building just get more money. So therefore there isn't any necessity to build tall. But if we didn't have that regulation, then it would be quite a problem. And it is a problem because all the investors come and ask us, can we just get it a little lower than 40%? And then for a time being, our politicians have said we want more youth housing, so the youth housing could go down to 30%. But what we can see now is, because the administration has been giving a lot of dispensations, because we wanted to get the housing so that the prices wouldn't go up, now the politicians is saying, you should not give all those dispensations. So now, and I'm glad that the politician is saying that, because that makes the city with more quality. So now we is being a little more, having a little more focusing on not making dispensation for, in general, for everything.
Tom, dvě otázky.
Hi, I would like to ask you what can be the message of this Copenhagen concept for small towns, or when the Copenhagen is the best city to live in, what is the way for a town in Denmark maybe to become the best town to live in? Like, can you apply somehow the core idea of your concept to other smaller towns in Denmark? Or
what was the question? Then, if advanced for a small city, smaller than Copenhagen, or as Copenhagen. Is Copenhagen a small city? Yeah. Yeah.
No, I mean,
smaller city.
If you when you want to try to say the core concept of the best city to live in,
yeah,
and you want to transform it somehow to apply it to town, maybe, or how does towns in Denmark work like?
I think in a way the two last statements would be the advice also for smaller cities, that one of the issues is to focus on the size or the human body, or human in general, and try to give it a little more free to humanity. I can see in the small cities of Denmark that a lot of the citizens are taking over. So the administration can't have the school any longer, so the school is just getting empty and nothing is happening. And then the citizen starts to buy the school themselves and they make their own free school as a part of it. And in a way I think there is a lot of good things in taking over some of the control people themselves. And then I think the other statement with trying to discuss the irrational is a way of telling small city or smaller communities also that by focusing on the way that we sense and experience the city and the way that we interact with each other is something that is important in everywhere. In smaller cities in Denmark, there is a lot of building that has been standing empty for a long period. And then they totally enclosed it, and it feels very unsafe to be there. And there is a lot of discussion, just pull down all those empty buildings. Some is saying you can't do that, some is saying you can do that. But I think that it should be, in a way, taken away so that we can start to develop something that is not closed, but that will invite you instead of afraid you. I don't know if that was a good answer.
Další otázka je tam vzadu, jestli měl před chvilkou.
Dobrý den. Já bych se chtěla zeptat, jak Kodaň pracuje s vizuálním smogem, respektive s reklamou ve veřejném prostoru, billboardy všeho druhu. V Brně tady bojujeme docela s výrazným černým výlepem, tak jestli máte nějaká opatření, kterým tyto věci nějak omezujete. Zkrátka z vaší prezentace vypadalo to město jako úplně bezreklamové, jestli nešlo jenom o vizualizace, takže tímto směrem bych se chtěla zeptat. Děkuju.
It is posters and things like that. We have some guidelines that is politically decided.
Online also?
Yeah.
Okay, I was prepared.
So our politicians is very aware of that we should not have too many posters and commercials things in the city. So they have pointed out, I think it is 9 places where you can have digital posters and things like that, but the rest of the city are not allowed to have it. And then there is also guidelines for how to make commercial things on the shopping streets and things like that.
Hello, good evening. Copenhagen is a growing city. Your ambition is 100,000 inhabitants more in 10 years. So my question is, do you have still enough residential development area in inner cities? And how many flats do you build in Copenhagen per year?
I can't remember how many flats we are building each year. We have a problem right now because there is more people moving in than the houses that we built. If we look ahead, we have spaces enough until 2025 if we have the same speed. So in a way, there is no stress. There is space enough. And we actually tried to discuss that quite a lot because the investors is asking us to build more dense and more high-rise. And the economy department has been saying yes, 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 yes. And right now they realize that that's not the right way to do it. So we are having discussions now with politicians and across the different departments of a common understanding that we have space enough. So if you want to build more dense or more height, you have to do it because you want to give something exceptional back to the city. And that is a very, very strong new direction that we have been having together. The understanding of no stress, space enough, but we have to do it faster and we have to have more social housing so that the prices won't keep on raising, but it will stabilize. And there is a lot of political focus on the social housing, a lot of project that is being designed right now. So I hope that within 3 years it will stabilize.
Tina, as you know, the city of Brno is about to have a new city architect and his office. And basically I've got 2 questions to you related to that. One is, if you can add some kind of like advice from your own experience to him, to kind of like what do you think, but also to the audience and their expectations to that position, you know, like what they should expect or what they should not.
Yeah, I think one of the advices is, and that would be to the city architect, that you have to have big ears and you have to drink a lot of coffee with a lot of people. Because what I can see is that when you have a lot of informal meetings and talk with people and try to understand why they act and say as they do, I think that makes quite a bigger impact than a lot of other things. And I think my learning is that also trying to understand that everybody wants really to make good cities. All the politicians, even though you disagree with, want to make good cities. So you have to understand why they sometimes take decisions that does not make a good city. And I think that needs some kind of openness and non-arrogance and a lot of dialogue. I think I often say that the most of my time I spend on talking with people. I do not take any decision at all. The position of the city architect in Copenhagen is that I'm advising people. I do not take any decisions. So I advise and advise and advise and talk and talk and talk. And then I also feel that a lot of my time is to get people to talk together. So sometimes I feel like a dating portal where it is all about connecting people and then they do better projects themselves if they just talk about it. I think that dialogue is one big word that should be important to be noticed about. And then for the people that is going to work together with the office of the city architect, I think that they should understand that that office is not God or anything, and that you should take responsibility yourself and try also to go into that dialogue positive and find out what can I do myself to get that into a better position. And again, try to understand your neighbor and understand that we all have different opinions.
And I would like to continue on this topic, and I would like to ask, even it can be difficult if we still don't know who is the winner. So I would like to ask which criteria very important for you in the projects that you have seen and very important for your decision?
I think that in the decision of who will be the one that will be the city architect, it has a lot to do with the structure of how it is here. And the organization and the understanding of the leadership. So therefore, I think that it's not the same situation as it is in Copenhagen. So therefore, also the role here of the city architect is totally different from what it is in Copenhagen. And I think that is important to understand, that if it has to be a success, it has to be grounded in the leadership, otherwise it won't be a success. That was not that clear.
Should I understand it as a strong personality, or?
Yeah, that is essential, I think. I think what is in common, both if we talk about the role here and in Copenhagen, is that you put yourself into a position where you disagree with a lot of people. And of course that needs to be in a strong person. And you have not to be afraid of conflicts, because there will be a lot of conflicts also in the daily life. That's also why I think you should be nice to the people, but to the person. Because there is a lot of conflicts, and I think that the role of the city architect in Copenhagen, and also I think that it would be it here, is that you have to be the one that sometimes says things that cannot be said. And therefore you have to, you should not be a person that will be easy stressed or things like that. So I think it has a lot to do with the person, if that makes a little more clear answer.
Já myslím, že jsme se mohli pomalu přiblížit ke konci té diskuze, tak bych to viděl na poslední 2-3 otázky. Tak vidíme to potom druhou tady ještě, nebo první tady.
Hi Diana, how are you? How long are you? Yeah, I can see. How long are you here right now in Czech Republic?
Until tomorrow.
Tomorrow, okay, but before you've been in Prague, so you spent already some time here, and did you cycle? That's my question. If you tried to cycle, if not, why?
I've only been here today, and it has been so close that we could walk. So I haven't been going around in a car, but only 5 foot. I've only been here for today, and I will leave tomorrow morning.
In Prague?
Yeah, in Prague I was for 4 days, and did we cycle there? No. No, we didn't. But I often do cycle when I'm in cities. But I didn't in Prague.
I would like to ask you one more question, and it would be, you spent some time in the city, so what was for you the biggest surprise, like in terms of city structure, or what was new for you in our cities, or if you...
I think I've been here so shortly that it would not be a real thought. So I will come back, and then I think it was quite a unique cultural heritage. So you have of what I've seen, there is quite a strong historical center.
Hi Tina, Teresa from City Strategy Office. Therefore, I would like to ask you what is, we saw your presentation, it's a nice advert for Copenhagen, but what is your opinion on other European cities which are livable, which are nicely to follow, some nice examples of other European cities which are nice to live in? Thank you.
I think Stockholm is very nice. It has a lot of open sea, which makes it totally different from Copenhagen, and it's interesting. We get a lot of inspiration from Hamburg as well. There's been changing their harbour site, and it's also focusing quite a lot on quality and strategic thinking. then I love warm cities. So I think going to Barcelona and Madrid is special just because of the weather. But I also think, especially Barcelona, has been focusing on urban space and good architecture for the last 20 years. So when they did their school extension 10 or 15 years ago, they put the new schools in the private area, so that the school, and they put very good architects to design the school and the urban space so that they could live an area instead of just being a building. And I think Barcelona, in that sense, has been taking a lot of good initiatives for the last 20 years. Then I love England, because I've been living there. I love London, because it's totally chaotic and the contrast is amazing. And often, and I think that is one of the challenges in Copenhagen, that we over-design it and it gets too nice and everything is too well planned and right. So I think going to London is a very good inspiration in that you just sometimes get it free and then people do whatever they want. And that openness also has a kind of beauty.
Prosím asi pro poslední otázku, jestli tady ještě nějaká je.
And then I actually think that Vienna is also a good inspiration. They have a fantastic focusing on housing. And we have been there for a couple of times to go and try to understand how the housing policy is.
Dobrý den. Já bych se chtěla zeptat. Děkuju. Když vlastně začala Kodaň směřovat na tu cyklodopravu, tak se to dělo na úkor automobilové dopravy, omezení parkování. A já bych se chtěla zeptat, co jste těm lidem nabídli v té první fázi? Nebo jestli ti politikové měli tak silný vliv, že ovlivnili i tu širokou veřejnost? Nebo už v té době se děly nějaké workshopy, které tu veřejnost přesvědčily, že tento směr je ten lepší i pro ně?
I think it's before my history in the city administration, but as far as I can read and understand, there was a political focus that was so strong that it took away parking area. So in the beginning it was really instead of some of the parking area. As it is today, it has to balance. So we can see that the politicians has gone from just only wanting more bikes in the city to find a balance between the car traffic and the bike traffic. So every time we take down a car parking today, we have to find a new one. But we do invest in underground car parking. So the city will go and put money into underground car parking. So that way we say that is also a way of making the balance. But that has been within the last 7 years that we have been investing in parking for cars. So it's not as it was 10 years ago. And it's an argument every time we put something in front of the politicians. We know that they will ask for the balance and that discussion.
Okay. Děkuji za vaše otázky a poprosím vás, abyste poděkovali Týně za její přednášku.